Hey guys, so my name is Brielle and I have Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome and a couple other illnesses that make me disabled. And today I wanted to talk about 10 different reasons that people say or think that I'm not actually disabled. So you guys can see my service dog over here. Just letting you know that that's what that is and not like a weird looking pillow. And I've got my computer down here for some notes. So number one is I don't use my wheelchair all the time. So I have a wheelchair that I use part-time. I am a part-time wheelchair user, which means that I only use my wheelchair when I need it. I don't need it all the time, but I would say that I use it like maybe a fourth of the time that I'm out and about. If I have my service dog with me, I usually don't need it, but if I don't, then, you know, sometimes I need to use the chair. But since I'm not in it all the time, and people will see me with or without the wheelchair, they think that that means that I must not be disabled because I'm not in my wheelchair, and so I must not be disabled because I use a wheelchair when I'm not paralyzed or something. So that's reason number one, is I don't use my wheelchair. The world has decided that I'm not allowed to film today. So number two, I don't use my service dog all the time. He does not always come with me, and that's because service dogs are not robots. They are dogs, they are living beings, and they deserve breaks. So Arlo, from time to time, will get a break. Sometimes he'll have an off day, and so I'll give him a break that day or the next day, you know, so that he can kind of like reset. Or if he had like a really long day the day before and I notice that he's really tired, I'll give him a break the next day so that he isn't, you know, going all the time really hard. And people think that just because I'm like with a friend and I don't have my service dog with me, that means I'm not disabled. No, it means that friend knows my disability and knows how to help me if something happens. Number three, you cannot see my disability. If you were to look at me, like without any, you know, mobility aids or anything like that, I would look like a completely normal functioning human being. But I have Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. It isn't a visible disability, like if you're walking past me in the grocery store, but if you were to see me on like a flare day or something, you might see me passed out on the aisle of a grocery store. There's different situations where you might say that it's visible or not visible. I personally consider it an invisible disability because, you know, I'm not paralyzed, I'm not in a wheelchair all the time, and, you know, I'm not missing a limb, I'm not blind, you know, those sorts of things. Number four, it's what's called a flare disability. So Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome can flare up and it can be really bad some days, and then other days it might, you know, not be so bad. So there might be days where basically I am not having any symptoms at all, versus other days where basically like I can't get out of bed. If I'm not wearing all of my braces and my orthopedic shoes and using a cane, you know, there's different levels of my ability every single day. Just because I can't do something one day doesn't mean I won't be able to do it the next day. So it just depends. I try and work with my flares, so if I'm having a flare one day, I try and schedule things so that I can do things that I'm able to do while I'm in bed so I can still be productive. But then, like, you know, if, you know, maybe the next day or the next couple days I'm doing great, I try and get everything done that I need to get done so that if I do have a flare, I'm caught up and I don't feel like I'm running behind. Number five, I work. I have a job. So I haven't had a full-time job in a while. However, I have had full-time jobs in the past, and I am a professional dog trainer. So I do work, and also right now I run social media for a business. So I do have jobs and I do work. I'm not on disability. That's not saying anything bad about people who aren't able to work or who are on disability, because, you know, this is just my personal list, but for me, I'm able to work. But there are accommodations that I have to have in the workplace, otherwise I'm actually not able to work. I have to be able to have my service dog with me, obviously. I have to be able to use my wheelchair when I need it, my cane when I need it, and there are some flare days where I will not be able to come in. So there's just different things that come up at different times, and you gotta kind of work around them. But that doesn't mean that I'm not able to actually have my own job. People think that since I do have a job and since I do work, that it must mean that I'm not actually disabled, because real disabled people can't work at all, or real disabled people can't have jobs, that kind of stuff, but that's just not accurate. There are some people with disabilities who can't, but, you know, like pigeonholing everyone into that stereotype is really strange and unproductive. Number 6, I am in school. I am a full-time college student. I am studying to be a high school English teacher. It's something that I've wanted to do since I was really young. So I've been in college for a while now. It's taking me a little bit longer, but that doesn't mean that I'm not, you know, in college and trying. I do take a full course load every semester, and I take classes during like winter break and summer to try and keep up, so that even with my disability, I am still going to graduate at a time that makes sense. People think that that must mean that I'm not disabled because they think that people who are disabled can't go to college, or people who are disabled aren't smart enough for college, which is really sad. And I think that, like, I've seen that stereotype happen all the time, especially with, like, my psychiatric disabilities, where people will legitimately think I'm just not smart enough for college, and that's just really sad. Just because I need accommodations in the classroom doesn't mean that I'm not able to, like, mentally process what's going on. Just because I need accommodations and I might need, like, extra time on a test or something doesn't mean that I'm completely incapable and shouldn't be going to college. That's just ridiculous. Number 7, I trained my own service dog. I'm a professional dog trainer, and not everyone who trains their own service dog is a professional dog trainer. In fact, most people who do train their own service dog are not. But I trained my own service dog, so people think that that means that either I'm not a professional dog trainer, or I must not be disabled or not need my service dog. And neither of those are true. I am both a professional dog trainer and I need my service dog. And, you know, I went through a lot of school and I did a lot of classes. I did my apprenticeship and I did a lot of job shadowing, and I did a lot of learning and educating in order to become a professional dog trainer, and I've worked in the field for a couple of years now. And I trained my own service dog. And both things can be true. So a lot of people train their own service dogs these days because it's really expensive to get dogs from programs or to pay for professional trainers, and I understand that. But people who fake service dogs are people who might not be educated in dog training and end up, you know, training their service dog, and then it ends up not going well, and so their service dog isn't very well trained, and they take it out in public, and it ruins the reputation of service dogs everywhere. They really ruin the ballgame for the rest of us. Basically, it means that people like me, you know, and other people who might not, you know, especially me, I have a program patch that usually goes on my dog because of the program that I work with. But there are a lot of people who don't have that. And, you know, they get pigeonholed into this thing where people think that service dogs aren't well behaved because they saw one not well-behaving, you know, fake service dog, and so they don't allow any service dogs in their building, and so then police have to get involved, and it's a big ordeal. So, AKA, if you can afford it, please get the professional trainer to help you train your dog. Thank you. Number 8, I am dating, or I have a dating life. I just got out of a relationship that I was in for 7 years, and before that I have had several serious relationships before that. So I am in serious relationships. I am, you know, dating. And I think people think that people with disabilities don't date, or that they aren't dating, or that they're not interested in dating or something like that because of their disability, which I think is kind of strange. I will admit that I do have some people like that I'm friends with who have disabilities who don't date because of their disability, but that's not the case for me. And I also don't only date people with disabilities. In fact, I've never dated anyone with a disability. So, you know, it's strange to get like pigeonholed into these like stereotypes that people have about disabilities and people who are disabled. It's really strange. And I think up until recently, and I started taking some of these classes in college that are about disability, I didn't really think about it too much. I was in a very serious relationship with my ex. We were like legit gonna get married. We moved in together, everything like that. Obviously you can tell, like, since we're broken up, that didn't go well. And it wasn't because of my disability that we broke up. So, yeah. And number 9, I didn't find out that I was disabled until I was older, and people think that that must mean that I'm not actually disabled. A lot of people think that in order to be disabled you have to be like diagnosed when you're like a baby, like you come out of the womb disabled, or you like come out of the womb diagnosed with your disability. And it's like, if you have an invisible disability, it's very difficult for other people, like doctors, to know unless you're able to tell them your symptoms. And if you're a baby, you can't do that. So with EDS, I would say that a lot of patients who get diagnosed with it are children, and that would have been the case for me. However, and maybe I'll do a video on this one day, but I was the victim of medical neglect. Basically what happened is my parents got divorced, and there was something weird that happened in the court where basically my dad had full medical custody of me up until I was 18. So he would not let me see a doctor for anything whatsoever. And until I was 18, I couldn't. So when I was 18, I started going and seeing doctors and talking to them about my symptoms. And I found out from a family member that on my dad's side, there is a really strong history of EDS and some other conditions that I've also been diagnosed with. I talk about EDS mostly on my channel just because that's the condition that I most strongly, you know, have symptoms for and is like my most disabling condition. And I got diagnosed when I was 20. So even though it took me until I was 20 to get diagnosed, I was still disabled when I was younger. I just wasn't diagnosed. And even people who, you know, like if they have POTS and they don't get diagnosed until they're in their early 20s or something, or like whenever, and they don't even have symptoms until then, that doesn't mean that they're not disabled. It just means that they took longer to get diagnosed. Number 10, the last one, some of my disabilities are mental and some of them are physical. Some of my psychiatric disabilities being like things that I go to therapy and psychiatry for. I don't talk about them too much on this channel other than like autism and sensory processing disorder. And I think that the experience that I have with them and other people might have is so varyingly different that like if I were to offer any advice or anything like that, I don't feel like it would be very helpful. With physical disabilities, like with EDS, I don't really try to offer advice other than like, you know, here's some physical therapy exercises you can try out or something like that, or like tiger balm, that kind of stuff. I think that maybe like the experience, not necessarily, it's not universal, but it's a little bit more connected than with psychiatric illnesses. I feel a little bit better talking about that. So I talk about my physical illnesses a little bit more on this channel, but I do have psychiatric disabilities as well. Some people might think that I'm not disabled because some of my conditions are mental, and people might think that like mental conditions cannot be disabling, which is also sad because that's definitely not true either. I've met a fair amount of people who have psychiatric conditions and they are disabled and they need a service dog, or they have accommodations at work, or whatever else they need in order to function as, you know, normally as possible. Yeah, those are the big 10 reasons that I have found that people tend to think that I'm not actually disabled, or like they tend to believe that I'm not disabled or something like that. And those are just 10 big reasons that I took out of like some of the medical classes that I've been in, social medical classes that I've been in, and from some comments on YouTube, that kind of stuff. Thought they'd be interesting to talk about. So what are some reasons that people question your disability? You don't have to share if you don't want to, but if you want to, the comment section is down there. It is free and open for you to rant all you want, and I will try and respond to as many comments as I possibly can. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like it, you can always visit my channel, Zebra and Dog, or at the end card there will be some more videos you might find interesting. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in whatever I make next. Bye!